Tim needs to kind of cross over that finish line. And the matchup is definitely still an uphill battle for Tim, but I would say Tim is much more capable of winning a game against lands when he's on the play.
Looks like Dom's promoting the event for us on Twitter. Thank you, Dom. And it looks like Dom's also on a mulligan to 5. I'm assuming these players have finished their mulligans because Dom's hand is down. We have 5 cards here, but that's going to be a tough spot, but this deck can produce hands that can do that. Tim looks to be on 7 cards on the play, like you said.
Yeah, really just wants to see the classic Delver start here, right? Turn 1 creature, daze your first spell, untap, wasteland you, and maybe Tim can just kind of run away with the game before it even starts, as we see a turn 1 preordain here. So no threat here for Tim. That's you get if you're a Dom fan, you got to breathe a sigh of relief. And I have some news for you, Mason. It looks like Dom has 7 cards.
There were just some. He had it kind of fanned out. It looked like 5, so I guess there was some hiding there. Dom just playing with our hearts there. This looks like him going on there. Probably a sign if you're Dom that maybe something like a Wasteland is in hand for Tim. He has something that he kept his hand. The open deck list, both players know what they're on. Tim knows he needs to kill Dom. So we're going to get a Bobble Trigger in the upkeep.
Yeah, and looking at Tim's hand, I think I saw a Force, 2 Bolts, and a Ponder, and I can't get a good look at the last 2 cards, but there are 2 Bolts in Tim's hand, and I think I'm pretty sure I saw a Force too. So we'll have to see if maybe Tim can untap and deploy one of those threats. Perhaps there is maybe even a daze here for Dom's first play. Could be, an exploration or something along those lines. But Dom can also there's also some, additional fight back here for Dom against daze, because Dom can say play the land first and then play something like a Mox Diamond and then deploy that 1 mana card. Dom went to play that Yavimaya, but now he's thinking a little bit.
Yeah, Dom has a Wasteland, so I think he's trying to figure out, am I supposed to Wasteland this Valk? And a lot of people just Wasteland the Valk, but Dom might be thinking, do I need to use this Wasteland on a different turn? If he had something like a Diamond, I imagine Wasteland the Valk and then try and slam his Diamond, but we'll have to see. It's a tough spot.
Yeah, it's really difficult because, the Delver deck can operate on so few lands anyways, because basically almost every card in the deck costs 1 mana, and it looks like Dom is going to play the Wasteland here and then deploy the Mox Diamond, heads up play against daze, and definitely, likely because we're playing that Mox Diamond, I would imagine we're going to fire it off, and we're just going to jam a Sphere. Love it.
And it's going to get Force of Will, pitching Ponder. Yeah, so I guess what was happening there is Dom was figuring out, do I want to Wasteland to make it so that we can't get a daze, or am I going to play into the daze via this? And that makes sense as to why there was so much deliberation.
Yeah, that, it almost seems like looking at it from the outside, it does kind of seem like maybe perhaps a risky play, because if there is a daze, it's a little rough. But Dom has risk assessment, has chosen to go ahead and do that, and it paid off for him a lot because Tim had to force it instead of having something like a daze.
Yeah, it might also be a situation where Dom's okay with the daze.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be great, but if Tim dazes, then maybe spins his wheels a little more. He didn't have a threat last turn, right? And Dom, Wastelands him while developing his own mana. Could be good. So we do see a Thespian stage in the Elvish Reclaimer. And I saw a Dark Depths in Dom hand, so he is going to next turn produce that 20/20 if Tim doesn't have a Wasteland. And it looks like Dom has another
Sphere?
Yeah. I'm really surprised. I mean, he didn't have a daze last turn. You would imagine he daze over Force Will for sure. So Dom for just calling the bluff on that and saying, I value having the Reclaimer more than I like having the Sphere.
And I kind of like Dom holding the Wasteland here because he knows, deck lists are open. There is 1 copy of Brazen Barber. That is something that Dom has to consider. But he knows that Tim's main avenue to fighting against Merit Lage, the Thespian stage Dark Depths specifically, is Wasteland, right? So if Dom saves the Wasteland for Tim's Wasteland, maybe Tim just says play Wasteland pass, then Dom can set up a turn where he goes for the Merit Lage, and then if Wasteland first, right? Wasteland, Tim's Wasteland, and then Tim goes to Wasteland, then Dom goes for Merit Lage in response. So looks like Dom is potentially saving those Wastelands for Tim's Wastelands.
Yeah, and it looks like Tim does have a Wasteland in hand. He's going to bend the daze.
Yeah, and this is something where Tim maybe is aware of that, and maybe Tim just wants to fire off the Wasteland on Dom's stage now. Potentially.
Yeah. It's a hard play to make, because if Dom has something like a Life of the Loam, you're just so far behind. But it does sort of, put you in the clear for a little bit. We're going to see how Tim wants to play this. He is going to tap 2 mana for a Chain Lightning. Gonna knock out the Elvish Reclaimer.
Yeah, and if we're gonna kill the Elvish Reclaimer, I almost think I like just killing it now. Yeah, Tim's just gonna get that stage out of there and not really give Dom the opportunity to either say, fight over, like stage the depths in response, or perhaps even use the Mox Diamond to cast a crop rotation, sacrificing that Thespian stage.
Yeah. We know Dom does have a Dark Depths in hand, so no matter what, there's at least one land play if he wants to make it. He might not want to. Dom might also, maybe now that Wasteland has happened, maybe he wants to Wasteland Tim, keep him off spells with the Sphere in play. He drew a Mox Diamond.
Yeah, second Mox Diamond, a lot worse than the first one.
Yeah, as Dom's last card, a crop rotation, maybe it looked to be a little bit of a green card. Hard to tell exactly.
If that's the case, you can go tap 2 mana, crop rotation, sack the Wasteland, get another stage, play the Dark Depths, and then hope to peel a mana source next turn. Dom's giving it a think here.
Yep.
Could also just deploy the Dark Depths and pass and maybe try to bait Tim into casting a Wasteland. But Dom's also thinking about wanting to use the crop rotation now while Tim is tapped out because of that Sphere, right? So, Tim currently cannot fight if there's a Force of Will, and Dom realizes that. So if you say pass the turn with crop rotation up, and Tim has the mana available to then fight over the crop rotation.
Yeah. Dom also has access to cards like Bojuka Bog, which will help prevent something like a Murktide coming down, undo this Delirium on DRC, and really buy him a lot of time as well. A lot of plays available to Dom. Is a really difficult place to be.
Yeah, it's tough. If you go for the Bojuka Bog, you just kind of have, assuming that the card is crop rotation, if you go for a Bojuka Bog, your last card is Mox Diamond, so you almost have nothing left. But it looks like Dom is lining up 2 mana. Yep, it is a crop rotation, so we'll have to see what he chooses to get. You could also maybe talk me into getting something like Urza Saga and then hoping to draw a mana source next turn. And, I guess if you're going to do that, you might as well get staged because mana source lets you stage, so...
Yeah, I like this. Dom's at 17. The only really bad thing that can happen is Wasteland could come up and that'd be a problem. Or, a huge Murktide region could come down. But we're going to see a DRC attack for 3 down to 14. There's a Bolt in Tim's hand. So there's a little bit of reach. Delver Secrets coming down for Tim. The coast is clear for Dom the moment he passes that turn, and Dom knows it. Dom's going to move very quickly.
Yeah, and I guess the nice thing is for Dom is Dom knows that the only out in Tim's deck is that Brazen Barber. So it looks like Dom does not find a land. Does Tim flip the Delver? Does not. It looks like Tim found a land. What I was going to say is that Tim has been missing land drops, right? And the Brazen Borrower Petty Theft does cost 3 mana, and then even if Dom drew the land, Tim would need to draw land to be able to go for that Petty Theft. But looks like Tim picked up a Flood or Delta, and then is deploying a second copy of Delver. Do we find a land here for Dom?
Dom drew. He's moving the Mox Diamond aside, so it makes me think he maybe has something to play. He drew a crop rotation last turn, and he has the Yavimaya Cradle now. So now the question becomes, does he go for it? One thing of note here, Tim Hatch has a Bolt in hand, so we know Dom's secretly at 7.
Yeah, so Tim is looking for a second Bolt. Second Bolt, flip the Delvers. Dom makes a 20/20, blocks 1, takes 6.
Well, the problem is you can't cast both because of the Sphere.
Oh, true. That's a good point.
Yeah. Dom now knows, all right, with this fetch here.
Yeah, he knows the Force of Will is not good. And the Merit Legions face up, so Tim really just has to just get an untapped land and really hope to draw that 1 copy of Brazen Borrower.
Yeah, it's Brazen Borrower or bust, I think, here. Yeah, Dom, I was going to say, he needs to make this now because otherwise Wasteland becomes an out. So Dom, with the draw, before the draw, Delver Trigger was on the stack. He's going to make the 20/20. Dom just wanted to get the information about if Delver was going to flip or not.
Tim does have a couple of turns, though, because he has 3. Well, I guess the Channeler is going to have to be thrown under the bus here, which kind of stinks for Tim, but does have the 2 Delvers to be able to chump block. So does have maybe a turn or 2 to try and find that Borrower. Obviously, would like to just draw it here.
I think Dom has a crop rotation for Sejiri Steppe.
Oh, is that Dom's? Okay.
Yeah, because we believe... Oh! All right, we'll see an attack with both Dom. What's up with that?
Yeah, this is a smart attack because the Channeler has to attack anyway, so you might as well get in the 3 damage while you can. So heads up attack for Tim. But yeah, if Dom's last card is Crop Rotation, that is going to do it. Because that will, like you said, just get the Sejiri Steppe and we'll be done here.
Yep. And if you're Dom too, you get to, you don't have to make the attack until it's resolved. So it's not like, I attack and then do it and then get forced. Dom can just main phase that if he chooses to go for it. Dom also is in, he's clearly trying to think of what can Tim have. If he had the Brazen Borrower, you have to imagine he would have done it when Dom was tapped out.
Yeah.
And would have pushed all the damage. So it's not that. It's not, another DRC or whatever. You probably would have played that.
I couldn't quite get a good look of what Tim drew after he shuffled it with the Force because we knew about the Bolt. Chat saying it's a Spell Pierce. Tim is holding it kind of close. It does look blue to me, but I can't quite tell what it is.
Yeah. If it is a Spell Pierce, then it's going to be interesting because Tim will pierce, but have to use 2 mana, so he will not be able to bolt, which means Dom then attacks with his 20/20, and Tim will have to block, and then Dom will be at essentially 4 life, right? So he won't be able to get the damage across. Right. Oh, you see Tim's tanking. He's trying to think of what's in the deck list. It's going to eventually come to Sejiri Steppe. Looks like Twitch chat, never wrong, Spell Pierce into the Surveil.
We always know that Twitch chat is never wrong. Tim keeping a card on top. Interesting. So, I mean, I don't know. I can't think of a card that Tim would keep on top besides the Barber. You see Dom picking up the token. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say you would keep Murktide on top, right? That would chump block you for a turn and also win the game, essentially.
Okay, I guess the Murktide he kept the Ponder on top. Very interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what Ponder's doing.
But yeah, just a Murktide would be perfect because then you go attack with the Channeler, put Dom to 4, play Murktide, chump block the Mirror Lage, untap, attack with Channeler, put Dom to 1, finish off with the Bolt. But yeah, it looks like Tim has decided to keep a Ponder. I don't know if that gives us any outs, though, is the problem.
I don't think it does. It looks like the top card would have been Force of Will, so if Tim had bend it, he would have lost either way. One of the things I'm more curious about was, Dom decided to block the DRC over the Delver. I guess the idea being Delver could maybe block, but the Surveillance almost got away with it there. And Dom, speaking of got away with it, got away with a little robbery on the draw there. Beat Tim Hatch and is going to be up a game going into our game number 2.
Yeah, and that Sphere of Resistance was massive from Dom. You see, Dom did have Dom was very aware and very careful that Daze is and was a possibility in that first game when he decided to jam. But you know what? Said, hey, I'm going to make you have it, and Tim did not have it.
Yep. Well, let's take a look at these players' sideboard and see what they have for the post-board games. We'll start off with Tim Hatch here. Tim has 3 Pyroblast, 2 Meltdowns, 2 Force Negations, and a bunch of 1-ofs in Grafdigger's Cage, Soul Guide Lantern, Null Rod, Surgical Extraction, Price of Progress, Submerge, Sylvan Library, and Minsk and Boo, Timeless Hero. Devin, what do you like and why?
So very similar to what we had talked about in the last time we just watched Dom. The sideboards are very, very similar to Sean's. And looking at the sideboard, we got the 2 Meltdowns. Those are slam dunks. The Price of Progress, that is a slam dunk. Past that, Tim does have a card in his sideboard that I believe Sean did not, and that is Submerge. Now, Submerge is kind of a weird one, especially when Dom knows about it. There are ways to prevent Submerge from happening, right? Where if you go, say, Reclaimer, sacrifice my only forest, or same thing with crop rotation, you can turn off the Submerges. It's maybe not the easiest thing, but Dom is aware of that. But that is a way to answer Mirror Lage. And then also potentially wants to go for the Surgical Extraction, the Lantern, and maybe the Force of Negations to help fight over Loam. But given that Tim has the Lantern and the Surgical, maybe that's a little bit of an overkill.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's check out what Dom has in his sideboard. Dom has 4 Swords of Plowshares, 2 Torpor Orbs, 2 Sylvan Libraries, 2 Force of Vigors, a Pithing Needle, a Haywire Mite, a Dismember, a Surgical Extraction, and a Caracas. Devin, what do you like and why?
I mean, for Dom, it's just business as usual, right? These 4 Swords to Plowshares and the Dismember, we've been talking about it every single time he's played Delver, and we're going to continue to bring those in. Past the 5 removal spells, you could consider something like Sylvan Library if you expect the games to go long, but I don't think Dom expects them. We've seen him board in the Pithing Needle before against Wasteland. I'm sure he's going to do that again, and that's pretty much it here for Dom.
Yep. One thing to notice as we're cut back to the feature match area is we can see the players while we're talking about this, right? We have a little camera in the corner. We get to see them. I watched Dom, took a look over Tim's deck really quick, grabbed his cards, took them out very quickly as if he's played the matchup, 5 or 6 times today or a million times in the past, and has been shuffling. Meanwhile, Tim was reading over, hemming and hawing a little bit, trying to figure out exactly to do, trying to figure out exactly how is he going to steal these games against Devin. Steal these games against Dom. And Devin, if you were Tim, what are you hoping for in order to sort of beat this land stack?
I mean, you just got to have the Delver draw, right? We haven't seen that. We've seen Delver on camera multiple times, but we have not seen the turn 1 creature, daze your spell, untap Wasteland you, and that's really what Tim needs. Like, this matchup is so bad for the Delver side of things that Tim really just has to get under him, get under Dom, and that's we haven't seen that yet. So Tim really looking for an aggressive start, backed up by those mana denials.
Yep, we're hope to see it. And honestly, the one game we've seen Dom lose against Delver, right? They sort of went one drop creature into Meltdown your Mox Diamond, which is essentially Wasteland you, right?
Yep.
So you do need to sort of stop this mana development despite them having 29 lands in their deck. They do, a lot of those are like spells, so fighting over them is good, but our players are getting ready here to play what could be the last game of our tournament today. See if Dom can do the back-to-back win. It would be very impressive, joining the likes of Steven Dykman, our player of the year last year.
Would you argue it's more impressive for Dom doing it because he played 61 cards in both events?
Ooh, that is tough.
We can have chat on that.
Dom is cracked and got to play like the 2 formats that I would like want Dom to play. You know what I mean? Like if I was like in a team event and Dom's like, what do you want me to play? What scene? I'd be like, I don't know, one of these 2. Which one do you feel better about? And then he'd probably be like Titan, and I'd be like, cool, Titan it is, And then last second we let him play Legacy or whatever because someone else wants to play Modern. But
if you think about it, lands is basically just Amulet Titan in Legacy, right?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think Dom just likes these like toolboxy agency decks that are green based. And also, I think that's probably why he plays 61 so much. Is he plays decks that play like 12s or 13 tutors, and he's like, yeah, having one more card is not the end of the world, and getting access to that one more option is actually pretty huge. As Brazen Bar is on the bottom of Tim's deck as we fetch, not a good place for it to be.
Exactly. So we see, Dom leading off on the best land, the best turn 1 land in his deck, Sejiri Steppe. You love to see it.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Remember, you want that. But yeah, so, and Tim can maybe gather a little bit of information. I know it's pretty subtle, but, Dom does have the 4 copies of Swords to Plowshares. And if Dom is willing, maybe just that's his only white source in hand. But I would kind of have a small read that maybe Dom has a plow if we're going to play that Sejiri Steppe on turn 1.
Yeah, also Dom, has been very methodical every single turn, right? Pretty quickly. I mean, he tanked for a second, but he pretty quickly played that. So it might mean that, he's kind of got stuff ready to go, and he just wants to get his swords, ready to go first. As DRC comes down, Scrolling Tarn is up for Tim. Tim has another Volcanic Island in hand with a Daze. Boseiju is a play for turn into Exploration. Tim's going to tank on that one.
Do we have a counter spell? We're getting word from our production that this is Dom's 22nd round this weekend. So a lot of magic here for Dom. And, he's still playing at the highest levels. We see a Force of Negation here taking care of the Exploration. Kind of makes sense. We don't want to let Dom get that additional mana generation.
Yeah, I talked about this earlier, right? But we see a lot of Legacy is typically dominated by players who play Legacy a lot, right? Like they know the interactions, they know their stuff. And then we typically see, Pro Tour players, they do well in Legacy, right? Whenever they play, because their technical play is so good, they always play like Delvery stuff. Dom, Pro Tour player, top forward Lord of the Rings, played Worlds this last year, about to play Seattle next weekend. Also just plays Legacy and Vintage all the time, loves Magic. He's just, an very, very strong player that you do not want to see on the other side of the table from you in any format, let alone the ones he likes to play for fun, like this one.
Yeah, we see a Brainstorm here for Tim. Currently 2 card types in graveyard, land and instant. Going to go ahead and likes the card on top. It looks like Tim kept a second copy of Dragon's Rage Channeler, so up the pressure a little bit. But we're still only going to have 2 types. So for Tim, if you're a Tim fan, you really want him to try and get to Delirium this turn, if at all possible.
Tim, yeah, that Force Negation is big too for Life in the Loam. It's going to turn that off as another DRC comes down. Obviously, we haven't seen that card yet, but having that one potentially covered could be huge. And Devin, this is close to what you're talking about. We didn't quite have like the Wasteland Deju, but we had, a pretty good start. We countered one of the cards that matters. We have a good amount of pressure. We're a card type away, and it looks like Soul Guide Lantern's the play. That one is tough.
Yeah, so Lantern coming in here for Dom. Normally, you would, its ideal function is to stop Tim from casting Murktide Regent, but even just being able to, get a little bit of the graveyard and make it so it's a little bit harder for Tim to achieve Delirium makes a lot of sense here. And that's a Maze of Ith as well, so that'll kind of stymie the pressure from one of those channelers.
Yep. Dom really, once again, showing that, this deck plays lots of different roles. Sometimes I turn to kill you. Sometimes I play a grindy game. Sometimes I'm a control deck. I do it all as, this Soul Guide Lantern plus Maze of Ith is going to make it really hard for Tim to actually get Dom. As, Tim's going to be attacking for 1, essentially, every turn until we get that Delirium going. And Tim doesn't want to lower the shields against Dom, who is just making these basically uncounterable spells in the form of these utility lands.
Yeah, it looks like Tim's hand, I think, is a Questing Druid, a Force of Negation, and one card that I cannot quite discern. But, and what's nice about that for Tim is that gets to hold up the Force of Negation, and then if Dom doesn't play into the Force of Negation, Tim can, cast the Questing Druid, get a couple of Surveils, draw a couple of cards, get a little bit closer to Delirium, and we'll see what Tim can find off of that.
Dom's like, bog you, and Tim's like,
Bog,
yeah. A naughty boggy, as we're going to get double surveil here.
Get bogged.
Secret Beast. Oh, it looks like we saw the Wasteland on top and decided to keep it, as the Wasteland and Bolt are the revealed cards.
Yeah, that makes sense. You want to keep the Wasteland because you really want to be able to get rid of that Maze of Ith. So Tim going to go ahead and pick up a card here. We're going to start off with the Wasteland. Presumably that is going to get rid of Maze of Ith. Now, for Dom, does have the potential to have a crop rotation here. So maybe I want to look at Dom's deck list. Is there more than one maze? There is 2 Maze of Ith, and presumably they would have both stayed in. So, Dom, if Dom does have a crop rotation, can maybe float the green mana from Boseiju and sack the Maze of Ith to get another Maze of Ith. So potentially, could be something here for Dom. But then if that happens, Tim could hardcast Force Negation on the crop rotation.
Well, I think Tim might be going for a cast the Questing Druid and then Bolt and Wasteland and just get a bunch of power on the board and basically just be like, hey, I've got this Force Negation in hand. I'm just going to try and push. And maybe we're just going to play the Questing Druid, and Bolt as a way to push and hold the Wasteland to stop the combo. But yeah, it does look like the Questing Druid's coming down. And Tim knows that he cannot play a super duper long game here. And once they get the value out of here, so we're going to get the Bolt with the Surveil. Trigger on the Questing Beast and get that +1/+1 counter. Surgical Extraction is going to hit the graveyard.
Yeah, a little late for that one. Not doing a lot here along with the Volcanic Island. So still only 2 types, instant and land. I'm just going to take 3.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think if Tim could be attacking for 6 here, he definitely Whistle in the maze. Now he's only attacking for 1 if he doesn't maze versus 2. Probably makes it a much harder decision, which is probably bad news for Dom. Dom's probably pretty happy with the Wastelanding the maze here, like you talked about, as we are going to get hit for 1.
Yeah, like you mentioned, if Tim was applying a lot more pressure, it would make more sense to use the maze. But because of that, wants to try and just hold up the Wasteland for as long as possible if Dom goes for the Thespian stage plus Dark Depths. So definitely, a lot of decisions here for both players.
Yeah, and Dom's still holding up this, Soul Guide Lantern. And if we Wasteland right now, Devin, we have the crop rotation to go get a stage and make a 20/20. So if Tim goes for it and doesn't have a way to stop the crop rotation, it could be bad news.
Do we have enough mana? Oh, we can sack the maze. Okay, so sack the maze, get stage, use the bog and the step to activate the stage. Okay. Yep.
Yeah. Now this all involved, we know Tim has Force Negation in hand. We're going to see an attack. Dom's going to put the Druid out of combat, take 2, down to 12.
So yeah, it looks like Tim has, I think, Brainstorm, Force Negation, Delver, Bolt is the hand. Not the worst hand in the world. So Tim could maybe say, play a Delver of Secrets, hold up the Force Negation and the Wasteland, and just try to get, Dom to commit more stuff. And I think that's what we're doing here for Tim.
Yeah, it looks like we're playing that Delver. Going to get the trigger on the Questing Beast, make it a 3/3. AKA Maze of Ith on that one for the rest of the time. Pass the turn. Dom immediately untaps. It's going to hold his crop rotation for now.
Not even thinking about going for that crop rotation.
Yep. Dom maybe doesn't want to lose the mana, even if, the opponent might get to cast it for free now. Urza Saga is the play for turn. That's going to help Dom.
Yeah, I got a glimpse of a Loam in Dom's hand. Couldn't quite tell what else is going on over there.
Yeah, the Loam is interesting.
Not the best here, because you don't really have, there's nothing to nothing to pair with the Loam. I mean, you could start dredging, but if you're slow dredging, you're probably getting, it's probably not fast enough against the 4 creatures that are in play here for Tim.
Murktide going to the graveyard. We're 1 card type away from Delirium, and it looks like Tim has something that he kind of wants to bin, kind of wants to leave on top.
You got a Thinker.
Yeah.
Probably just looking for a spell to flip the Delver.
Mm-hmm.
So you could even see something like, spell, flip Delver. See exactly. Oh,
Meltdown. Yep.
Spell.
That makes sense with what you said, right? Sort of a card that just flips Delver, but not one that Tim's very excited to actually have in his hand in this game.
Yeah, I guess you can Meltdown to force the Soul Guide Lantern pop, and then potentially, if you have a spell to follow that up, can maybe get towards Delirium this turn.
Yeah, I mean, if Tim is going to Wasteland.
All right, here we go. We're going to have the big fight now.
Yep.
So Tim Wastelands the Maze. Dom casts Crop Rotation. Tim fights back with Force Negation. And we get some triggers here.
Yep. Yeah, and Dom's going to pick up. He knows he's dead because all of those are going to come through because he no longer has the Maze of Ith.
Wow.
Well played by Tim.
Wow.
Dom there sort of, felt like he was slowly setting up, putting in a good spot, kind of like we've seen Dom do over and over again today, but wasn't able to close out there. And Tim, grasping for that title. He wants that W. He wants those leaderboard points. He's so close. Let's pull up real quick what these players are playing for right now. That way they can have an idea here. Dom has already punched his ticket to our championship at the end of the year via winning earlier today. But there's 30 points on the line and $1,200 for first place. 25 points for second and $600. That's what these 2 players are battling for. And for Tim, 30 points will really help cement him in that race for the championship. Dom, if he wants to make a player of the year race, is going to need those 30 points for that because, he's in Canada. It's hard to grind all of them. But let's take a look at that leaderboard here. Yeah, Tim Hatch, as you see, in second place, right behind Dom with 37 points. He is our number 1 person who is not already qualified. If the name is orange, that means they're already into our championship. So, he's going to, no matter what, get 25 points, and that's going to put him solidly at the top of the pack here. And, if he can just maintain, a good, solid performance in the next couple of events in our part 1 of the season, then, he's going to be in a great place for the championship, as we do have 3 at-large bids that I believe get decided at the end of July after that event. So we'll see there. But the players are shuffling up for game 3. Devin, are you sticking with Dom for the finals? Are you taking Tim? Who do you want?
Well, I mean, we've kind of already been saying the entire time that we think Dom is favorite, even with Tim on the play. Now Dom gets to be on the play. And, Dom definitely, I can't root against this person. He never loses. All right.
Yeah, I got in here, like you said earlier in the feature matches with round 6. I was like, we don't need to feature Dom. He's going to be playing a win-in. He is going to just win the tournament. He doesn't lose in Legacy. Here he is in the finals. I'm not going to vote against Dom. I roomed with Dom at Worlds. He loses in Worlds, doesn't make day 2, plays the 11 p.m. Legacy Challenge in the hotel room as I'm going to bed. The man doesn't stop gaming. He's a monster, and yeah, maybe he'll lose. Who knows? Magic happens, but I'm betting on Dom here going to the finals. And I'm excited to see this game because Tim is making Dom work for it. In all these games, I've been really impressed by Tim's play. He's not missing any little things. He's taking his time. He seems to be making really smart, reasonable plays. Saw that in Standard with the Esper Rafine deck as well. Sort of very methodical, but, at like a good pace and thinking through his turns and making logical plays. Doing it again here. We've seen him sort of, battling out against little players. So 2 really strong players. I'm excited to see who is going to take it down here as they are presenting their decks.
Yeah, at this point, you just can't bet against Dom. He's just been on an absolute tear this whole weekend. Like we said, he's played 22 rounds of Magic between yesterday and today. I believe this would be, I think this is the 23rd. I think the 22nd might have been the last one. I lost track at this point. Too many rounds, Mason. But here we go. Both players looking at their opening hands. See if we get some keeps. Dom's looking away from the table.
I don't know what Dom's on something right there. He's like, he also sees this 7-card hand. It's so good. Is that what's happening? He's like, is this real life? He doesn't have a Pithing Needle, a Swords to Plowshares, and I believe an Urza Saga as
he's like, hey Judge, can you take a picture of this hand so I can post it on Twitter later about how insane it was in the finals?
Yeah, Tim also seems to be having a tank moment. Definitely has a Daze, I believe a Wasteland over there, Brainstorm, and some other cards. So it's an interesting spot to be. Let's see if these players want to keep it as Dom. Yeah, maybe what happening is he's missing colored mana or something. I'm unsure. I'm sure, if he made that choice, it was a good one. Tim looks to be keeping his 7. Unclear if, he was really happy, or one of those spots where he's like, oh, I love my hand, but I just have to wait for you to say your answer real quick. I don't know how many times it happens. Like in Pioneer, I feel like it happens all the time. I'm like, I'm going to for sure mulligan this no lander hand, but you're playing a Thoughtseize deck, and you should probably just mulligan. Don't keep it just because the Thoughtseize and I'm mulliganing. Like, let's do this here.
Yeah, and like I said, we've been hyping up Dom quite a bit over the course of this, of this event. He's just been on an absolute tear. Tim no slouch either. Tim, don't forget, Tim has lost in the finals of the most recent Standard Showdown to Sean Gallagher. So, Tim is second on our leaderboard. We got a showdown of first and second place. You don't see that very often.
You do not. And getting a better look at Tim's hand here, Tim actually has, it looks like Brainstorm, Delver, Wasteland in his hand, and the Price of Progress. So Tim basically has what he's looking at. I don't know what's going on there. Some laughs seem to be occurring. But looks like Dom is going to keep this hand. Kind of Thespian stage is about all I can make out. It looks like we have a Windswept Heath and a passing of the turns. Could be a Lush Portico. As Force of Will is a draw for Tim.
And do we have the Delver draw? The turn 1 creature, daze your play, untap, potentially Wasteland you. Although, I guess there's not really a lot of 2-drops in Dom's deck, with the exception of the Spheres, if those stayed in, which Dom isn't the play, so they potentially did. But yeah, we'll have to see. Does Tim have the turn 1 creature? I couldn't quite get a good glimpse. You said there was a Price of Progress. I didn't see if there was a Delver or a Channeler, though.
There's definitely, I saw a blacked out card, so I believe it was the Delver, since he has the flip card markers in his deck.
Yep, there it is.
Yeah, real question is, will he play it? I think it probably makes sense just to get on board, but there might be, some cantrip you want to be doing. Looks like we are going to get this Delver on board. Dom's going to fetch. I imagine this is a Lush Portico moment. Looks like we had a bobble. Okay. Sure.
The lushest of Porticos.
I got a better look there of Tim's hand. Looks to be 2 lands, once a Wasteland, Price of Progress, Force of Will, and Brainstorm. And the last card is Thundering Falls. So, Tim,
don't be too upset about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me I had that hand against Dom, in the dark or whatever, I'd be like, I'd keep, like, whatever.
I think I see a Bojuka Bog, a Thespian Stage, an Urza Saga, and among other cards in Dom's hand. Didn't quite get a good look to see if there was a Plow. Kept the card on top with Portico.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure Dom's Plows are whiteboarded, so I don't think there's one in hand.
I think so too. I think he drew a Crop Rotation, but I could be mistaken. It's a little hard to tell.
It's not the worst one.
Yeah.
So the question is, Dom, do you want to deploy the Saga this turn? And it looks like the answer is yes. Now that's nice, because maybe that baits out the Soul God Lantern 2. Could potentially be good at stopping a Murktide later down the road. But yeah, what's nice about the Urza Saga is it sort of potentially maybe baits Tim into using the Wasteland, where I guess maybe Tim might Wasteland the Portico anyways. But yeah, Tim's going to keep the Delver, or keep the card on top rather, to flip the Delver. It's a Brainstorm.
Yep. Well, yeah, it flips and you draw from the bauble. That's right. Excuse me.
Right.
And,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so what's really cool about that is you can stack the triggers. So if you say you see a spell on top, you can stack the trigger to flip the Delver first before drawing the bauble, or if you don't see a spell, you can resolve the bauble trigger and then resolve the Delver trigger.
All right, looks like a Wasteland on the Urza Saga. We're going to see a Force Negation after a Crop Rotation tries to save it. I'm sorry, Force of Will, excuse me. That's going to knock Tim down a life. He's going to lose that Brainstorm. Dom, though, back to just 1 land in play with a Delver facing him down. He is on the play. Spot where he would love to develop something like this, just like a Thespian stage, past the turn. In his upkeep, he's gonna Swords to Plowshare. Yeah, playing around the Force Negation. I like it.
Yeah, and I think that might have been the draw step too, because I don't remember seeing a Swords to Plowshares in Dom's hand last turn. So, if really good time on that Swords to Plowshares to make sure we can get this Delver out of here. And Tim says, "Yep, you got it. No more pressure here for Tim." Does have that Brainstorm that we know about, and the Price of Progress. I think just picked up the
DRC. Yeah, that was a huge draw step. Tim needed that pressure. Thundering Falls is going to be the land for turn. Will this hit us the Surveil into the Delirium? Right?
Not quite. We got land, artifact, instant. Dom's going to cycle the Soul Guide Lantern. Okay. Digging a little deeper.
Yeah, this might be a turn where Dom just goes like, bog you, naughty boggy, get it out of there. Then and then set up for the Dark Depths on the next turn. Because now, Tim pretty far away from Delirium, and it seems like the card Dom is always the most afraid of is Murktide and Wasteland. Those are like the two things he's always trying to play around. So we do see a Chain Lightning, get rid of that Scolding Tarn.
So let's think about this. Chain Lightning puts Dom to 13. The Channeler puts Dom to 12. Dom has non-basic land number 4. That's 8 damage off of the Price of Progress. Not quite enough here for Tim.
Yeah, I was going to say, if Tim can surveil, with the Brainstorm here, it might have been, with the thing, the Price of Progress might have been insane. But we are going to see Brainstorm surveil away the days.
Okay, so now we have instant sorcery land. If we can find a Mishra's Bauble, that gets us type number 4, and then Dom, we can go put Dom to 10, and then the Price of Progress is for 8. That puts Dom to 2. It's still just a little short.
A little short. We did draw a Surgical, so that could help us. We could fetch and then maybe try Surgical, something like Swords to Plowshares. Looks like we're going to hold it for now. Just attack Dom for 1.
So reasonable. The hand is then what? Surgical, Price of Progress, I think?
I believe those are the 2 cards in Tim's hand. Well, I'm sorry. I think it's a Bolt in his hand that he's shuffling.
Oh, and maybe he put the Price of Progress on top.
Yeah, and he's just, I'll put that there for now. I don't think Dom has like Cabal Ritual or Cabal Therapy, excuse me, but maybe he's afraid of something like that. I definitely know that I've played tournaments where it's open deck list, and I've been like, sometimes people play cards like this, and I'm not sure, and I'm pretty sleepy, so I'm just going to do it. Now, here's the real question. Dom has the ability to make a 20/20, but it's walking to Brazen Borrower. He's going to play around the 1 Borrower with the 4 Wastelands, and it looks like Dom wants to play around the Borrower. Oh, he's going for the upkeep.
Well, remember, post-board, there's also a Submerge, too. And Submerge is turned on because the Portico is a forest.
That makes sense.
So something to keep in mind as well. Tim does have 2 answers post-board. Now, Tim knows the top of his deck off of that Brainstorm. So, if the top of the deck does not contain an answer to this Merit Lage, you're likely going to see Tim crack a fetch here. Could even see, Tim crack the fetch and then maybe bolt to surveil off the Channeler. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, if we did put the Price of Progress on top, it's gone now.
Yeah.
This is like our best way to get out of here.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I guess what Tim can do is we can fetch now, try and draw Submerge, and if not, we can main phase 2, maybe bolt or something, and give the DRC flying to create a jump blocker.
Yeah, it's also worth noting that I believe was it Tim at 21 before that fetch?
Yeah, he was.
Okay, so now falls to 20. I was going to say you maybe could even just not crack the fetch, stay, but then if you know the top of your deck is not good enough, then that's a little sketchy. Weird spot here for Tim.
Yeah.
So now you probably cast the Bolt in the upkeep just to try to find either the Submerge or... Okay, we're going to Surgical first.
I like the Surgical because now you get to know what's in Dom's hand as well. So if there's some weird spot where you can play around a card, you'll know for the next surveil.
Ooh, Tim keeping a card on top.
Yeah, okay. It might be a Ponder. It might be a Brazen Borrower. It looks like there was a Thespian Sage in Dom's hand. Great snipe there. So Dom has Yavimaya and Mox Diamond as his card, basically just on 2 lands.
Yeah,
Damn, doesn't even look.
It wouldn't necessarily be like it's just because Tim is keeping a card doesn't necessarily mean it is specifically the Borrower or the Submerge. Could just be, like you said, a Ponder, Brainstorm, just more ways to dig and try to find that.
Yeah, you would snap, just keep one of the cantrips on top and just move to main phase 2.
Right,
So,
yeah.
All right, Tim, like we said, it's been really methodical. Looks like he did pick up a
Ponder.
Ponder.
Yep.
I imagine we're going to see
get basically 5 more looks at one of those bounce spells.
Yep. I assume that there's been some, verbal action of I'll move to main phase 2. Dom's like, yeah, man, I got lands in my hand. As we see the Wasteland go to the graveyard.
We get a good look.
Ponder.
I see a Misty, a Wasteland, I think. I can't see what the middle card is. It might be a Questing Druid.
Oh, yeah, it might. Yeah, it looks to be a green card, which I think would be the Questing Druid. So maybe he's thinking, can I chump or something,
Keep the Druid chump block. But yeah, Tim's going to go ahead and shuffle. Just knock the top. Do we find one of those bounce spells here for Tim?
Yeah, and even if he does, Dom is not 100% out of it yet. Dom could draw something like Swords to Plowshares to take down the DRC, and the game will continue for many turns to go. So Tim very live here. We can also draw something like another Ponder, Devin, another Brainstorm.
More sweats, yeah.
Yeah, we have lots of looks, and each of these looks is helping Tim out. Tim takes the draw. Ooh.
Was it not showing the camera?
Only Tim knows, and only Tim needs to know.
Yeah, true. Even Dom doesn't know.
Looks
Tap
like
a 2 mana. Is that a borrower? It's a Murktide. Okay.
That is big.
Well, it's awkward though, because now you're losing Delirium, which means that the Channeler can't block, I presume. I don't think there's a way for us to Murktide and keep Delirium. Looks like no.
Yeah, but it does give us another draw step. We can find something like Submerge, like Brazen Borrower on the next turn just by, chump blocking here.
Did we not have Delirium? I just kind of assumed we did because we had so many cards in the graveyard.
No, we never had Delirium. That was the whole thing. That's why I was saying we moved to main phase 2 so we could maybe chump. Because if we had it beforehand, we'd have to attack into the Merit Mage and things would be awful.
Yep.
Dom here. Once again, those cards in the back row are his hand. He's just playing face up because Tim saw it via Surgical. A little nicety here. As it's now up to Dom to figure out what to do. Almost assuredly is going to attack this turn, whether it's for the win or a chump block on the Murktide. Unsure. It looks like there's some jokes going on. Love a little laughter. Everyone having fun here. Everyone's been gaming all weekend. Yep. Tim's like, don't want to lose the game. Chump block that Merit Mage. Dom, it's like, well, what do I do now?
So that does put a creature in the graveyard for Tim. So, right, we have creature, I believe it's creature instant land, I think.
I believe he has 2 lands. He has Scalding Tarn and a Misty. So there's only 3 types, which is actually, I think, why he tanked so much on his Delve there, because he was trying to make it so he would not be forced to attack, so he can maybe set up the main phase 2 chump block again. Because once again, Tim got rid of the Thespian stage, which means if he can if he can get rid of this Merit Mage, he can probably beat Dom because all have his Urza Saga.
All right, here's the bolt. Do we find Delirium for Tim?
Oh, it's a big look there.
We're keeping. I mean, okay. I still only see creature instant land.
Maybe I missaw something. Looks like the players. Yeah, maybe that's a Chain Lightning.
It might be a Chain Lightning instead of the bolt. Okay. Yeah, it looks so similar to a bolt. Okay, so Tim did have Delirium with the bolt and is keeping a card on top. We'll have to see what it is.
Yeah, I wonder why Dom is holding his land too. I guess Price of Progress is the thought. It's the only thing Dom would be super duper worried about. He could play something like an Urza Saga here if he drew it and probably be fine. I guess if you have the Urza Saga, you should just wait because you could get bolted plus Price of Progress, and that's like a good way to lose the game.
Yeah, so if you're Tim, what cards do you top here? Obviously the Borrower or the Submerge, but like you said, you'd probably still just top any cantrip here too, right?
Yeah, I'd top any cantrip, any answer spell, and any flyer. Because a flyer is just a redraw, right? Like if you have a DRC, you just get another turn. Or a Murktide, you get another turn. Looks like a Ponder.
Yep.
All right. Tim holding a Wasteland as well.
That's the Submerge, Mason.
Oh, we have it.
Oh my goodness. I'm pretty sure it was Submerge. It looked like a blue card. It's been a while since
it's a Brainstorm. It's a Brainstorm.
Was it? Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
It looked like a Submerge for a second, but apparently not. All right, never mind. Sorry, Chad. I jump scared you. My bad.
And if it was a submerge, we're gonna lie to chat and say it's brainstorm so they don't roast Tim.
Well, they've been roasting us enough today, anyways, so it's fine.
Oh, they can't roast us. They can roast you. There's a difference. So we are going to see the ponder draw here for Tim. And Tim, it looks like it might be something that kind of chump blocks. He's kind of like, I don't know, I got another thing to play.
Oh, no, the cards, there's 2 cards there. It looks like they were stuck together.
Oh, sure. It looks like they're stuck together.
That's
yeah.
awkward.
Yeah, I mean, it's very obvious which card is which, but
right, they haven't changed the order.
Yeah. I mean,
he never actually touched his hand. He just kind of looked at the second card. I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is a hidden cards error, and if this is Tim's only hidden cards error, what we're going to do is we're going to shuffle and give Tim a new draw. The real question is Tim have the Brazen Bar with the Submerge right there, and Tim knows he just dexterity errored away a trophy, or does he get the redraw at the trophy? So we're going to have to see here. Dom and the judge are talking and listening.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly what's going on here. I can't get a good look at the cards, so, I mean, apparently I don't know the difference between a Submerge and a Brainstorm anyway, so I probably wouldn't be able to tell you what the card is, but I can't quite tell exactly what Tim is looking at. We'll have to see how the judge decides to rule this. This is, a pretty tense position. Like we said, Tim just needs to top deck an answer to that Mirrored Lage, cantrip to find another one, maybe a flyer or anything like that as a chump blocker.
Yeah, I can't help but think that there's probably a Brazen Bar or a Submerge on top, and that is why Tim is like, my cards were like this, I haven't moved. Maybe it's not the case. Maybe it's a situation of just the judges saying what exactly happened and Tim saying this is what happened. Who knows? But we'll have to see. Dom and Tim. Dom's like, oh, I'm just here.
I'm just
I got a flight in like 3 hours.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a force negation. Okay. So I see what happened. So Tim's basically saying I would get a redraw via the judge. I would have lost to you. I am conceding. Congratulations to Dom Harvey on your back-to-back win. Not a doubt in my mind from the start of sitting down and seeing Dom at X and 1, not even undefeated. Somehow he lost. Somebody slayed Dom this weekend in one game, but he won it all back-to-back. Congratulations. Joining that Pantheon of, I believe, just him, Matthew Hoey, and Steven Dykeman. Those are the 3 players that I know of who have back-to-back NRG. So congratulations to Dom for joining that. And we're going to have Dom in the booth in just 1 second for another players interview where I'm sure he'll talk about his sponsors and where you can find him on Twitter and his podcast and everything. But Devin, what do you have to say after that?
Absolutely phenomenal run by Dom. Like you said, he just cruised through all of those Delver decks on the way to the victory. I think as we mentioned, he played 3 in top 8 and 2 prior to top 8. So 5 Delver decks in a row, just crushed them all. And Tim did give him a pretty good fight. I will have to give it to Tim. Tim tried his best and then put up a very good fight. But congratulations to Dom. And it looks like we have him in the booth with just not 1 but 2 trophies.
Yeah, the double trophy. Dom been known to double fist it, and he continues to do so. Congratulations, Dominic Harvey, on your back-to-back win. How are you doing? Can you hear me, Dom?
It appears that Dom potentially cannot hear us.
Oh, now I can. Hello.
Now, congratulations, Dom, on the back-to-back. How are you feeling?
I'm back. I'm so back. I'm back-to-back. It's great.
Yeah. Well, after dominating the competition, what are your thoughts?
I don't know. I'm great. My decks are great. I think that really speaks for itself. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Dom, I guess the question we're all thinking is, you crushed it in Modern with the deck, you crushed it in Legacy. And by the way, Devin and I the whole time were like, Dom's going to win this. It's why I didn't get a future match earlier. We were like, we know you're going to top 8 the Legacy event. It's really a question of, will you get unlucky in top 8? And so we had you there. But are you thinking about making a run for Player of the Year? Because you are number 1 on our leaderboard by a bit now.
I'm already how not. It's not making a run. As
No, for Player of the Year. I know you're locked to the championship.
No, Mason. That's what I mean.
Oh. I see. Well, I wouldn't bet against you. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that was, I don't even have words at this point. There were 5 Delver decks in a row, 2 before the top 8 and 3 in the top 8. And I was saying to Mason earlier, as soon as you beat Storm, I think it was like round 2 or round 3, I was like, there's no way he's losing this tournament.
Yeah, that was one of those real butterfly effect moments for me where game 3 against Eric Hawkins on Storm, open up this 7, which it doesn't have a sphere, doesn't have any way to really interact with him, but it's got turn 3, I'm going to attack you with Marrowlage, so that's probably good enough, right? So turn 2, I just flop my cards and play. He Thought Season me, see the turn before, sees the coast is clear, and I just have to pass the turn, hope for the best. He turns out he can go off on turn 2, and he does, but the card I drew was my 1 surgical extraction in my sideboard, which wins me the game, and from there it was just a clean sweep rest of the tournament.
Oh, God.
Oh my goodness. Well, Dom, you've dominated everything, and we know that you need to get going out to the Pro Tour so you can hopefully dominate that. But before we go, of course, we got to give you your chance to promote all of your stuff. Dom, if people want to find you and find content on your stuff, where can they go?
Yeah, so they can find me on Twitter at Dominic Harvey, posting a lot. I do have a problem. And you can find the link to my Amulet Bible in the pinned tweet there. Link to my coaching services, Patreon as well. Going to be releasing the guide to the Lands deck that I just won the tournament with, as well as the Amulet list as well. And so much more on top of that. So yeah, a lot coming up. This has been a very busy weekend, but really, really hard to complain, honestly. And yeah, even if the Pro Tour doesn't go according to plan, it can still count it as a pretty successful trip. But after this, celebration dinner, then nose to the grindstone for the rest of the week.
Well, good luck at the Pro Tour. I know I'll be rooting for you, and we'll see you in the NRG streets. As like you said, you solidify your Player of the Year status as the year goes on. Congratulations once again, Dom. We will talk to you later. Devin, I mean, I love it from Dom. He says it's already a lock, and honestly, I'll say it. Dom Harvey is my pick for the best player on the NRG series. If he's playing all the events, I take Dom in the dark versus everyone in the field. Clearly a dominant force, and putting his money where his mouth is. Getting 2 trophies and saying, guys, it's obvious. It's just the real question is who's going to lose to me in the race.
I mean, like Dom said, he couldn't have said any better. It's locked at this point. Any event that he shows up to, everybody else is fighting for second place. And if you two at home can fight for second place by going to one of our next coming events here. So
yes,
hell of a run.
We're going to Indianapolis May 11th with a modern 10K showdown where it sounds like you can expect Dom Harvey to be there on Amulet Titan, and then Sunday a 10K team showdown event, Standard Modern Pioneer. Once again, our showdown events directly qualify you for our championship. That is $35,000 on the line, a Pro Tour invite, and a chance to play against such great players like Dom Harvey, like Steven Dykman, and so many more. Tim Hatch, at this rate, Tim is putting up a great run on the leaderboard. We have another event announced already. That's in St. Louis on June 22nd and 23rd. We have a 10K Pioneer showdown on Saturday, and then the first big modern tournament after Modern Horizons releases on Sunday with the 5K Modern Trial on the 23rd. So make sure to click that follow button no matter what. That way you get to see all of this action. You can see these games live, and hopefully we can see Dom, defend his trash talk, or even more hopefully, I want to see someone else come for Dom. The Canadians can't just win every Magic circuit. Every time there's a Magic circuit in the States, the Canadians come down, they win them a bunch. They did it before COVID. They're trying to do it again. I need some red-blooded Americans to defend the line. But Devin, thank you so much for commentating with me this weekend over here on the NRG series. I want to give a shout out to everyone who makes these productions happen. Thank you to everyone behind the scenes. Thank you to all the staff, all the judges, all the players, all the viewers. Without y'all, we wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be able to do this, and we wouldn't be able to bring you paper competitive Magic. So thank you so much. Thank you to Norm as well for, believing in paper Magic and coverage. We love you all, and we will see you in Indianapolis on May 11th.